On this episode of Motorsport Recently, we look back at the Spanish Grand Prix, the Indy Grand Prix, and the Monaco EPrix. Also, we look over IndyCar practice and what on earth has happened to Aussie driver search. This is Triple Crown Racing. Let's get into it. Hello everybody and welcome to Motorsport Recently. My name is Jack McKenzie and joining me on the mic is the wonderful Chris Whitfield and Caitlin Penny commentary. We are live and we're actually on time for the first time in ages, which is really good. And we have a packed show for you today. So of course we are looking back at the Spanish Grand Prix, the Indy GP, the Monaco EPrix, IndyCar practice and qualifying, which is actually happening as we speak. And of course, we are looking at the liquidation of Aussie driver search. And if all gets done to talk about that to you. So, guys, well, after the Motorsport Recently.
Welcome.
All right, so I think before we get into the news today, I actually want to say a few words. So before we get into the news today, a couple of days ago, this channel reached a milestone which means more to me than most people could ever understand. I was probably about 9 years old when I started my first YouTube channel, and my goal was to be successful on YouTube. First, I would have to reach 100 subscribers. Now, 6 years and a few failed YouTube accounts later, Triple Crown Racing ticked over to 100 subscribers. In a modern internet world where YouTube channels have in excess of 80 million subscribers, it doesn't seem like a lot. But for someone like me who runs pretty much this whole thing off a school computer and writes scripts in every free minute, it means to see this channel grow a bit more every single day. I'm also honored to be able to work with Chris, Caitlin, Freya, Smoking Puppy, Finnick Arrow, and to be supported by so many more. And I can't say how thankful I am to have everyone along for the ride. I hope this is just the beginning, and I can't wait to reach future milestones with the people who have been there since day one and the people who jump aboard this awesome mini racing empire. So, without further ado, this is Triple Crown Racing. Thank you for 100 subs, and let's get into it.
First off, congratulations.
Congratulations, Jack.
we did a thing.
We did a thing!
We've
Yay!
done a very, very good thing. So, should we get into the news then?
Yes, let's start with the news.
Alright, so Formula 1 took us to Spain for the 5th round. Oh, actually, do you want to put us on our Formula 1 screen?
Oh, yes, let's do that. Sorry about that. There we go.
Yes.
Formula 1.
Alright, we'll be on our Formula 1 screen now. So anyway, Formula 1 took us to Spain for the 5th round of the 2019 season. After the previous race in Azerbaijan, Valtteri Bottas led in the championship standings by 1 point over teammate Lewis Hamilton on 87 and 86 points respectively. Sébastien Vettel, third in the championship at the time, on 52 points. It wasn't looking very good, was it?
It's looking even worse now, Jack.
We'll get into that.
Well, we haven't gotten into the yet. So we can still delude ourselves into thinking something's going to happen.
Okay, let's do that.
Yes, we can. I wonder what will happen. In qualifying, it was Valtteri Bottas on the pole, followed by Mercedes teammate Lewis Hamilton. So the stage was set for the watch Hamilton an awesome race. And it was Lewis Hamilton with the jump getting by Valtteri Bottas. Vettel tried to make it 3 wide into turn 1, but he locked up and lost bucket loads of time and squeezed Bottas in between him and Hamilton, meaning that he also lost time. Lewis Hamilton would then streak off into the distance. Hooray! Max Verstappen would also sneak through on Vettel at the start of the race. By lap 12, Ferrari's race was already going down the toilet. Vettel and Leclerc would scrap for a bit, but Ferrari couldn't decide which car was faster than you, so to speak. Cars around and doing absolutely nothing at all useful with their pit stop strategies. So very, very productive. Good. I'd say that having the awesome Grand Prix in the past, i.e., 2016, probably because both Mercedes took each other out. But this one was extremely boring. I think you'll agree.
Which, by the way, was evidenced by the fact that I was snoring through
You know, it's not particularly exciting when in the highlights pack, the most notable thing that was going on at any given time was a battle between Kvyat and Raikkonen for 15th place. So anyway, later in the race, Lando together, taking both cars out of the race, and it brought out the safety car, and we all thought, hooray! Something interesting. Now we'll have a 13-lap sprint to the finish and maybe a battle for the lead. Romain Grosjean would battle with Carlos Sainz, a battle in which Sainz would eventually win, but other than that, nothing else noteworthy happened, and Lewis Hamilton won. So after that, the standings like this. Lewis Hamilton leads the championship on 112 points over Valtteri Bottas on 105. Excuse me. Max Verstappen is now third with only 66 points. Oh dear.
Right. Now, I don't like it when people say that any Formula 1 race is boring. I think that even the most mundane Formula 1 races are still, I would say, more exciting than pretty much any other form of motor racing, in my own personal opinion. And I don't think that it needs to be flat out side-by-side action the entire way to make it fun. That being said, the only one Formula 1 race which I would ever say is boring is the Spanish Grand Prix. And the reason for that is because I think it's because they shouldn't test and race at the same track. If they test and race at the same track, they end up knowing the track off by heart. And that's not just the drivers, that's the setup engineers as well. The setup engineers know exactly how to get the maximum out of their cars. And if you do have cars that are faster than others, they are going to finish ahead. That's why Mercedes was so utterly dominant. That's why Bottas was able to take pole by 6 seconds. That's why Hamilton was able to romp away, 6/10 of a second, sorry. That's why Hamilton was able to romp away into the lead. I just don't think that Formula 1 should be racing at the same track they do pre-season testing on. I agree more with them racing at the Hungaroring and Yas Marina, but even though they test at those tracks as well mid-season and after the season, because by the time they go there, the race for that year has already happened. When you get pre-season testing at a circuit, which they're then going to race on, you can guarantee that all of the work, or the majority of the work that they're going to be doing over pre-season testing, sets them up for this one race. And as a result, you know what the result is going to be. You know that nothing interesting is going to happen, and that they're all going to finish in their rightful order. And to be honest, I really don't see the point, and I wish they'd move pre-season testing back to Jerez.
Well, I actually think you might have an ideal situation very soon, because there's talk of the Catalonia circuit actually being dropped from the calendar, but will still be used for testing.
That's good. I like that. That's good.
It's a bit like Estoril, where you Grand Prix testing, and then the Portuguese Grand Prix later in the season.
I think we still do need a Spanish Grand Prix, just not necessarily at Catalonia, because the Spanish fans are so passionate about their Formula 1, and it'd be a shame to take it away from them.
Rats.
Well, you see...
Something... Sorry, I got a lump in my throat.
I get it. You see, the Spanish fans, they're very into whichever of their Spanish sports people are winning. So, for example, the majority of Spanish interest in motorsports has always been around motorbikes, because, you've got your Jorge Lorenzos, and you've got your Marc Marquez, and, even back in the 80s and 90s, I don't know enough about motorbike racing, but there were plenty of Spanish drivers winning in that as well. In Formula One, we've only ever had Fernando Alonso, and all other prominent Spanish driver, or all other Spanish drivers, full stop, have come through after him. You know, Roberto Merri and Carlos Sainz. They both said they were inspired by him. So, really, I don't think the Spanish are particularly enthusiastic about motorsport. They're enthusiastic about Alonso in particular, and that's why I don't really think we need a Spanish Grand Prix, especially since we now have talks of, you know, potentially 5 more circuits joining the F1 calendar. We can't have a 25 race year. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
It's already cluttered. We don't need
So
more.
anyway, we went over the drivers. The situation in the construction is grim. Mercedes are on 217 points.
Hey, guys, hold on a sec. Guys, sorry. I have to stop you very quickly because there seems to be a lot of stuttering going on. As in, like, you keep kind of cutting out and roboting, and I'm pretty sure that's coming through on the stream. And I'm not really sure how I can solve that. But if you'd like to start what you were saying again, please.
Right, so the situation in the Constructors' Championship is just as grim. Mercedes are on 217 points, while Ferrari are on 112. And in this battle, of course, because Max Verstappen has severe back pain due to carrying the entire Red Bull team this entire season so far. Next up is the Monaco Grand Prix, which means we've gone full circle in terms of our Formula One coverage, as the 2018 Monaco GP was the first GP ever covered on Motorsport recently. However, the 1-year anniversary of this channel is still to come. Formula One for this week.
Yeah, it's not looking great, and to be honest, I still really enjoy Formula One. I still think that even when the racing isn't particularly close and exciting, it's still absolutely the pinnacle of motorsport. And I don't like the fact that people slam Formula One for slightly dodgy seasons. That can happen at any time. To be honest, my favorite era in Formula One was probably 2007, 2008. Although even after that, I just don't think that Formula One is anywhere near as bad or in such a bad shape as people make out, and I don't get why people seem to hate it so much. But I must admit, the start of this season has not been great, and I do fear for the rest of the year. And, you know, having the top 3 in the championship, 1, 2, 3, and the fact that at the first 5 races of the season, the top 5 finishes have all been exactly the same, just in different orders, that doesn't bode well. And I must say, I'm fearing the next 2 races, because Monaco and Canada, they're, you know, I'm going to enjoy them, but I'm worried that no one else will. And by the time we get to the first race that I think actually could be a proper classic, like France, I think everyone would have got bored and turned off by then. So I fear, I fear for the fan base more than I fear for the sport, if that makes sense.
You have had some really good Canadian Grand Prix. It's just last year's Canadian Grand Prix was rubbish, if I can remember correctly.
The Canadian Grand Prix has always, the Canadian Grand Prix ever since 1978 has always produced a good Grand Prix.
For last year.
Last year was, as you said, absolute rubbish. Like, honestly...
You see, it's a Grand Prix...
I think it's the rules package.
No, I think
that's mostly doing this.
I think very much like Monaco, it's a Grand Prix that relies on chaos. If there's no chaos, there's no action. And as a result, I wouldn't say that it always produces a good race. I'd say that Monaco and Canada, you know, they're both classic tracks and they both can produce very exciting races. They can both produce they can both produce some fantastic, exciting races, but they're not really tracks that you race at, per se.
Maybe I'm a little biased being the only Canadian here, but...
Potentially.
Well...
I see Silverstone as the best track, so...
I wonder where you're from.
Hmm. Before we move on, there are some people who are, of course, checking in. So we have you, of course, Chris with your eyes emoji, Caitlin with the eyes emoji, Freya Edwards checking in as she normally does. Thank you. We also have a new viewer who I haven't seen before. Maybe that's just because he's never been on any of the live streams. But we have Toonami18 in the chat. So hello to Toonami18. Welcome along to Motorsport
Funny thing is, Jack, he seems to have said hey there, turned up, then left a dislike and ran off. Lovely new viewer, welcome in. Sorry.
Maybe it's reverse psychology. Don't dislike the video and don't subscribe. Wait.
Anyway, sorry, moving on.
Alright, can we move on to IndyCar?
Where was I going with this?
Yes, let me get
Okay.
my wonderful IndyCar screen. That's the credits. There we go. IndyCar screen made by Finnicar. Yeah, we're over already. Bye, guys.
Ta-ra!
No, yeah, wonderful IndyCar screen as made by Finnicaro. Thank you very much for that, Finnicaro.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. It's of course the month of May, which is the best time of the best time of year for IndyCar. So, I think I'll give Chris the honors of telling us about IndyCar.
Yes, because there's a lot going on. Kicking off the month of May, of course, was the Indy Grand Prix. Yes, I know there was testing last month, but wasn't May. This is now May, according to the script I've handed. Felix Rosenqvist would get his first ever pole position in IndyCar. However, this was an insanely interesting qualifying. In second was his Chip Ganassi teammate and defending IndyCar champion Scott Dixon, aka Mr. Five-Time. And in third, in the second row, it was Jack Harvey from Meyer Shank Racing, and in fourth was Colton Herta. So the stage was set for a custom race.
I've just wanted to hear you say that for ages because it's something I've always said on here. So I'm really happy that you've said that.
The stage was set for an awesome race. The race got underway, and Alexander Rossi, one of the biggest losers, ending up with a bent rear toe link after contact with Andretti teammate Zach Veach and limping back to the pit lane. He lost 4 laps in that, getting the car repaired. Marcus Ericsson yellow on lap 11. He slid up the road and slammed into the wall in the final corner, putting an end to his race. As the race went back to green, the two teams would continue to battle with Jack Harvey and Colton Herta, and Ryan Hunter-Reay would become casualty of a turn 1 incident. And I think I read that wrong. And Colton Herta and Ryan Hunter-Reay would become casualties in a turn 1 incident when James Hinchcliffe misjudged his braking and harpooned into the side of Hunter-Reay's car. The weather was beginning to become an issue, and most of the field pitted for rain tires. Rosenqvist had 2 minor fires in pit lane, but other than that, everything was fine.
Just a minor fire. Just a minor fires. No, nothing to see.
I once saw Michael Schumacher win a race after his car caught fire in pit lane.
Hold on, I've just Have you ever seen the episode of Top Gear where they talk about the British Touring Car Championship and Jeremy Clarkson suggested they change it to the Burning Car Championship to make it more interesting?
Oh golly! Well, I do remember when Jason Plato got burnt when testing a Caparo T1, and they all nicknamed him Burnt Potato. Yeah.
I thought it was Jason Potato.
Yes, but in that case he was burnt potato. He was baked potato because he'd been burnt in a Caparo T1. So yeah, went from just normal Jason Potato to baked Jason Potato.
now I'm craving a baked potato.
Sorry, Chris.
Thanks. The final yellow of the day was caused when Elio Castroneves spun and beached the car into the gravel trap, causing the race to be under the safety car for, I believe, about 20 minutes. 18 laps to go, it would be a sprint to the finish. While Dixon led away, Simon Pagenaud would charge through the field and end up second in the closing stages. With 2 laps to go, and with a small mistake from Dixon, Pagenaud would capitalize and sneak into the lead of the race. The race ended and Simon Pagenaud won, followed by Scott Dixon and a very stunning third-place finish for Jack Harvey in the Meyer-Shank car. Can I just say, get in there. Get in there, Jack.
Get in there, Jack Harvey.
Get in there.
Very good. Awesome work from that little team to get that car into third place. Fantastic job from Simon Pagenaud as well, because I think at the restart, and he made his way up to second and then into first and won the race. It was amazing.
He was nowhere in the first half. Like, he was battling just to stay in the top 10.
Interestingly enough, now with Simon Pagenaud now winning the Indy Grand Prix, he's won that now 3 times, and Will Power has won it 3 times, and that's in 6 Indy GPs, so they're equal to. That makes sense.
Pretty much. There's only really been 2 winners of the Indy GP, of course, those being Will Power and Simon Pagenaud. And then, well, like, don't you hate it when you lose words, especially when you're in the middle of recording a live podcast?
No, trust me,
I'm not
I do all the time.
Any words because I've had my breakfast of champions, of course, being porridge.
Oh, have you? I haven't had porridge in years. Goodness me.
Had porridge today, so hopefully I'll actually be able to make cohesive sentences this week, unlike last week. So looks like it's Chris's turn. I still kind of want to talk about Jack Harvey, though. That is absolutely amazing for Maya Shank. That's brilliant.
Yeah, genuinely. I believe that's.
Is that Maya Shank Schmidt Peterson's best result?
Ooh.
I believe it is. Yes.
That's fantastic. That's superb.
Not Schmidt Peterson because they've won a few races, but
Schmidt Peterson, Maya Shank.
Just Meyer Shank, yeah.
Now, Jack Harvey's a guy that I really don't know much about. I watched some races from the 2013 GP3 series, which he did. He actually won 2 races in that and finished 5th overall. Yeah, since he started racing in America, second twice in Indy Lights with 6 wins.
Ooh.
And
Here's
then,
an interesting thing. He was a former member of the McLaren Young Drivers program.
Very interesting. But yeah, 3rd at Indy, and of course, let's not forget his previous best result was 10th. So this was an amazing improvement, and to be honest, really quite surprising. But I'm very happy for him, and let's see how he does at Indy.
Yeah, that's a fantastic result for Jack Harvey. Let's tell us about the championship standings at this point.
Yes, the championship standings are, heading into the Indianapolis 500, sees Josef Newgarden leading the championship with 182 points over Scott Dixon's 176. Alexander Rossi is 3rd, and a good result from Pagenaud means that he is 4th in the championship standings. Then we have Indy practice.
Here we go.
Oh boy. On day 1, it was followed by his teammate Simon Pagenaud and Indy 500 pole sitter Ed Carpenter, who would finish the day in 3rd. Power set a lap of 229.745 miles an hour, which translates to a time of 39.173 seconds. Fernando Alonso was relegated to the pit lane for most of the day due to a gearbox and clutch issue on his McLaren. The only incident of the day was a spin caused by a right rear tire puncture for Colton Herta. Herta didn't hit anything and came back to the pit lane to finish, but he was finished for the day after that. Day 2 was another good day for Team Penske, with Josef Newgarden topping the timesheets, followed by Scott Dixon picked. Santino Ferrucci made it to a surprising 4th in the overall classifications that day, on 33rd in the non-speeds. Unfortunately, it was another dreadful day for McLaren as in turn 3. Hit the wall in the short chute, speared to the inside wall backwards, and nearly overturned his McLaren. He would walk away unscathed, however, less could be said about his car. Felix Rosenqvist would also crash in turn 2 as the air was disturbed from behind Colton Herta. He got loose coming out of turn 2, spun hard into the outside wall. His car narrowly came into the path of Will Power, and Power narrowly missed the accident before smashing into the inside tire wall, connecting the road course to the oval. Then the third day would see yet another crash, as Pato O'Ward nearly flipped his car coming off of turn 2 on his own. Ed Jones would top the timesheets in the Scuderia Corsa number 63 with a speed of 227.843 miles an hour. Shortened session, but in second spot, it was the 2017 winner Takuma Sato, and third was Zach Veach. Fernando Alonso was a no-show out on track, as the McLaren was busy preparing the Carlin sheets. That was actually the vehicle that it was the car that he tested earlier this season at Texas. On day 4, Connor Daly went to the top of the timesheets with a 231.704 miles an hour speed. This is, of course, Fast Friday, which means the boost is turned up to near full, and it's usually the time anyone cracks 230 miles an hour on their own. The 4th day would also see the 4th major accident of the month, with Kyle Kaiser slamming into the wall and nearly blowing over in the number 32 Juncos Racing Dallara, or Chevy Power Dallara even. Unfortunately, have we lost it?
No, we're still here, Chris. Sorry.
No,
Perfect.
we're still here. Listening intently.
The Lenny face.
Yeah, don't worry. You haven't been speaking to yourself. I've done that before.
I do that when I'm sleeping.
Oh, Chris. Okay, go on.
I do. Alonso managed to make it out on track for the session, but managed only 24th. Now, Juncos Racing, by the way, has rebuilt their car that they ran at COTA earlier this season into a speedway configuration.
Oh my goodness.
Now today,
Wow.
They've lost all their sponsors, and then now they've had to rebuild a road course car, so that's not very good.
if I'm to give a little bit of an update on what's going on today, the top 5 at the moment is Spencer Pigot on the pole with a 230.083. Will Power at 230.081. Simon Pagenaud with a 229.854. Josef Newgarden with a 229.749. And Colton Herta, who actually, before the podcast started, earned a blistering lap of 229.478 miles an hour. Now we get into the danger zone, as James Hinchcliffe, who has not yet qualified for the race after having a massive accident in much the same way as both O'Ward and Kaiser during his first qualification attempt, he has not yet qualified for the Indianapolis 500. At this particular moment, the bubble in 30th position, because we qualified positions 10 through 30 today. The bubble is the number 66 McLaren, driven by Fernando Alonso, with a speed of 227.224 miles an hour.
Indianapolis is the only place in the world where 227 miles an hour is too slow.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've seen like from the year before go home. Remember Penske in 1995?
I mean, I don't remember, but you might.
And James Hinchcliffe, by the way, is the next car on the racetrack at the present moment. Just in qualifying line 1. So we're going to see exactly if he can bump his way back into the field.
So I think there are some main things that we need to take away from practice, and I think the first thing that really comes to mind, and this has also happened in qualifying as well, lots and lots of very scary looking crashes.
Well, you say that, but actually I've been really impressed with the IndyCars so far. I've seen this a couple of years ago, I think 2015, where we had the old DW12 chassis, I think, or was it DW14? Sorry.
No, it was a DW12.
DW12, yeah.
Okay, 12. All right, yeah, got it. Whatever the case, whenever they did that, they tended to fly much further and much higher, and it was a much less controlled sort of takeoff. The ones that we've seen this week, they haven't really taken off. Yeah, there have been a couple that have flipped over, just, in a straight line, but have come straight back down on their wheels again and haven't really been affected. Those being Pat O'Ward, Carl Kaiser, and James Hinchcliffe. And that's much safer than a car getting properly, over the nose kind of airborne like we saw back in 2015. And to be honest...
That's because, if I'm not sure if you saw the analysis, I think it was Patricio O'Ward's crash, the underside of the car has, 2 holes in it, and because the old car had such a massive surface area on the bottom of the car, it'd make it so much easier to blow over. But those 2 little holes that let the air go through, the surface area that allows blowovers to occur is smaller, so that means blowovers are less likely. And also, I think the cars are overall safer when they hit the wall, because if you remember a few years ago, Sébastien Bourdais had a very similar crash to what we've been seeing this week, and he ended up in the hospital. All of the drivers have walked away from the crashes that they had, so that's again more safety improvements for IndyCar.
Admittedly, Bourdais was at a sharper angle, and it was faster. These ones at least have spun, so they've hit with the other side of the car. But still, yeah, absolutely a great safety improvement from IndyCar, and the fact that the cars aren't completely blowing over anymore, and the fact that they're not getting proper height when they blow over, is so much better.
Yeah, and then also things to take away from practice, and then as we're also seeing this in qualifying, Fernando Alonso is too slow. Slow.
Well, he's on the bubble right now. As far
Exactly.
as far as the positions top, if he manages to stay in 30th, which with 15 minutes to go in this qualifying session, if he manages to hold off for 30th, he's in no matter what. Because he doesn't have to re-qualify tomorrow. And if there's a threat of rain, which there apparently is, that means that he will start the Indianapolis 500. Currently, the three that would be knocked out are Max Chilton, Kyle Kaiser, and James Hinchcliffe, but Hinchcliffe has not yet qualified for the Indy 500.
And that's because he had a massive crash.
Yes, he's in the 5T car at the moment.
Yeah, Kaiser and Hinchcliffe, of course, two of the guys that have had accidents, but that would be gutting for Chilton. Chilton was actually running very high up in the Indy 500 a couple of years ago. I think 2017 he finished 4th, am I right?
He always runs well at Indy.
Yeah, why is he off the pace so far?
Harlan.
It's
Harlan has not had a
unfortunately
good
the
time.
way the Carlin cars are. Like, the bottom three at the moment are like in the bottom of the list. And Hinch has just timed in, by the way, at a 226.956 mile an hour 4-lap average.
Does that qualify him?
32nd.
Oh, so
He's
close.
32nd. So he is in the last. He's in the last row right now, the center of the final row of the grid.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Alonso get a full IndyCar drive next year with a different team. I wouldn't be surprised to see him move up from Carlin.
Well, it'd be interesting to see. I'm not sure if this could happen, but I think you'll remember that in the past that McLaren actually had a partnership with Penske. So McLaren Penske car in the future, because this McLaren Carlin lineup does not seem to be working particularly well.
Did McLaren have a partnership with Penske, or was it just Marlboro?
No, it was with Penske. It was like
In the 70s they did. They ran Penske chassis, but it wasn't a
I thought McLaren made the chassis for Penske at one point.
Oh yes, they did.
Yeah, so that's what I mean.
In which case, could they maybe open an old friendship and get Alonso into a Penske car?
That's what I was thinking. So we could see Alonso in a Penske, but because right now this Carlin lineup is not working very well, so we'll do our best to keep you updated on the Indianapolis throughout the show today, but of course it won't be invasive.
Keep in mind also that there's 10 minutes to go in this qualifying session, and if you are one of the cars that needs to qualify and you're in line, you have to have been started and rolling before, like, as the gun goes off at 5:50 p.m. local, or your run will not count.
Should we, in a moment, we'll move on to Formula 3, but I don't think we had any more practice days.
No, it's been qualifying today.
All right then. So who's getting bumped? Just remind us before we go on.
Currently, the ones that are out are Sage Karam, Patricio O'Ward, J.R. Hildebrand, Kaiser, and Max Chilton.
And then Fernando Alonso's dangerously close to getting bumped, I can imagine.
He's on the bubble. at 227.224.
That's very hairy. So,
And
at the bottom of the page here, we have no toe speeds and, well, various other speeds as well. So, what was
and
this
Sage
for?
Karam has just completed his run and has not. He doesn't do it. He just did. He did not have the pace and is not going to 31st at a speed of 226.951.
So, Chris, we were talking the other day about who our predictions were for getting bumped, and I said Pipperman, Ben Hanley, and who was the other guy I said? I said Man Hanley and did I say? Can you remember who I said?
I think you said Santino Ferrucci.
No, Chris said
No, I
Santino
did.
Ferrucci.
Oh, okay.
So how are Pipperman? Oh, I also said James Davison. So how are Man, Davison, and Hanley doing?
Presently, Davison is 15th
Okay, so he's
at
clearly in.
228.2.
All right.
Who are your other two? Ben Hanley?
And Pipperman, yeah.
Ben Hanley is 25th at 227.482.
Okay.
Pippa Man is 29th at
Right.
227.244. Now, the ones that are not in at the present, the ones that I thought would get bumped: Santino Ferrucci, Zach Veach, and Alonso. Ferrucci is 21st at 227.731. Veach is 27th at 227.341. And Alonso is 30th at the present moment on the bubble. So if he holds it with 6 minutes left, he is in the Indy 500 starting 30th in the outside of the 10th row.
Yikes, that would be painful for Alonso, but at least he's got in.
And J.R. Hildebrand has just entered the racetrack according to the IndyCar timing.
I'm still convinced that Alonso is going to be IndyCar full-time next year. Whether that's with Carlin or not, I'm not entirely sure. If it is with Carlin, they will definitely focus on their oval setups more. But whatever the case, yeah, I definitely think that Fernando Alonso is going to be in Indy next year, full-time.
I am also of that belief as well, that he's going to at least try and bump his way, or I think he's going to be in IndyCar full-time.
So anyway, we'll keep you posted on that throughout the show. So what with the no toe speeds that we have written here? What are those for?
They were basically qualifying simulation. Basically the best and slowest cars of the vehicles that are
without other people on the track at the same time.
Yeah, without the aid of a draft.
Right. Okay. So on those, it was Colton Herta who was the fastest, and then
yeah, that was actually, those were Thursday speeds.
Thursday, right? Okay, good. And then of
it
course,
has changed.
That so right now qualifying's happening. We'll keep you posted on that throughout the show. Should we move on to Formula E?
Yes, they went to Monaco, right?
Yes, that's correct.
They did. And do you want to take the story, Caitlin?
I can. I haven't seen the race, but I have the article here, so that should help. I was planning to see the race, but unfortunately I didn't get to see it last night. But anyway, the Formula E circus landed in Monaco for the 9th round of the Formula E Championship. It was Jean-Eric Vergne on pole position for the race, with Mahindra driver Pascal Wehrlein lining up alongside him in 2nd place. As the lights went green, the 22 cars went racing. This season so far has been an absolute wreckfest, and race fans, ourselves included, were expecting more of the same. However, surprisingly, heading into Turn 1, we saw a maximum of 3 drivers going side by side and all getting away cleanly. Monaco provided us with some really good and importantly clean racing. The first 3 corners were clean from every driver until Wehrlein locked up going into Saint-Devote, losing 2nd place to Oliver Rowland. This also helped Venturi driver Massa. The Mahindra team ordered Wehrlein straight into attack mode after the lockup to try to make some of the places that he'd lost, and he did this with 36 minutes on the clock. Overtakes are often minimal at Monaco in some forms of motorsport, but not in Formula E. We saw some great racing between Lynn, Sims and Da Costa. Sims was ahead as Lynn came up behind him, and as Sims made a mistake, it meant that Da Costa easily overtook him around the outside in the Jaguar. Lynn in the Jaguar. McLaren driver Stoffel Vandoorne was another victim of Sam Bird this season, as he pulled off a perfect late braking move into the hairpin. This meant he was able to get 9th place with 22 minutes of the race remaining, but the didn't end there. With 18 minutes of the race left, Maxi Gunther, had to drive his car into the runoff area due to damage on the front and rear of his Geox Dragon. This brought out a full course yellow. As racing began again, it was Jean-Eric Vergne, pole sitter, who was leading with 17 minutes to go. We were all surprised that there hadn't been a major crash or coming together up front. However, we'd spoken too soon. Lucas Di Grassi was forced to retire after the front left suspension was damaged from Alexander Sims cutting off the Brazilian. The second retirement of the day would be the Virgin racing driver and Dutchman Robin Freins. Before going into the Saint-Devote hairpin, the Dutchman was unable to braking time and ended up spinning Alexander Sims. No damage was done to the BMW, and he simply rejoined the track after being pushed around 360 degrees and losing many places. As for Robin, he had a lot of damage and was unable to go any further than the runoff area around the track near the hairpin. Battery levels and energy levels are a fundamental part of Formula E, and that proved to be the case when Pascal Wehrlein was robbed of a victory at the Mexico EPrix. It looked like the race leader was going to end up having the same problem this time, because on the last lap Vergne had 1% charge. However, he managed to just about hold on to take victory in Monaco and celebrated alongside Oliver Rowland and Felipe Massa. After 9 races and 4 to go, it's Jean-Eric Vergne who tops the championship. He is just 5 points ahead of his teammate Andre Lotterer, who again only leads 1 point over Robin Freins for Envision Virgin. Even though the Drivers' Championship is still anyone's to play for, the Constructors' Championship is still looking good for DS Cheetah, who lead with 169 points. They have a 34-point lead over Envision Virgin Racing, who have 135 points. Next time out, we go racing at the airport in Berlin for the second last European round of the championship. That article was written by Freya Edwards, who says, "Well done, Caitlin." Thank you, Freya, and also thank you very much for the article about Formula E. So, Jack, the new qualifying system for this year, do you think it's too artificial? Because I do.
So, now, some people may call me an idiot for not doing this, but I actually haven't watched qualifying at all this year.
Right.
So, actually entail.
Okay, so just to explain, there are 4 qualifying groups before we go into a Super Pole, but these first 4 groups are organised in championship order. So 5 cars will go out in the first group, and they will be the 5 championship leaders, followed by 5 in the next qualifying session, 5 in the next qualifying session, and then the bottom 5 in the championship go out last. This means, of course, that by the time the people who are last in the championship go out on track, they have the greenest track, as in the track with the most rubber on it, and it means that providing there's no weather intervention, the guys who go out last will usually be faster than the guys who go out first. This means that the guys last in championship tend to start near the front of the order because they tend to be the drivers who get through to Superpole, and as a result, the championship leaders end up starting near the back almost every time. I think this is too artificial, and I think that's why.
That is far too gimmicky. That is far too...
Absolutely, it is.
That sounds very artificial. So why do you bring up qualifying?
Because I don't like the way this championship is being done, and I don't like the fact that everyone goes on about how amazing it is to have 8 different winners from the first 8 races, and yet the reason for that is because it's just not, you know, it's all far too gimmicky, and I can't help but feel that, well, yeah, it's great to have a championship fight as well as just a you know, a racing fight. We've seen from previous seasons in Formula E that we don't need you know, we don't need to prompt races, like, you know, we don't need to prompt championship fights. They do tend to just happen, and I just think, you know,
it's well, that the winning the 7 different winners, or however many we had, that of course came to an end at Monaco with Jean-Eric Vergne winning. But if that is actually the case, that is far too artificial. And I definitely agree with you on that one. I do want to talk about the race itself, of course. This was actually complete wreckfest, like every other race that seems to have, apart from the first one that happens. So I'm surprised that Monaco wasn't a wreckfest.
I'm not so surprised, because when you look at Monaco, yeah, you know, it's a tight and twisty circuit, but the thing is, it has its killer what's the word, reputation from Formula 1, and of course Formula 1 cars are not suited for going around a street circuit like that, and are much more used to open road courses. Formula E cars are suited to street circuits. They're designed to it, which is why they have a much tighter turning circle than other cars, and it's also why, you know, they tend to race on street courses, and it's why they don't have such a high top speed. And as a result, actually the other tracks they go to are much, much tougher and much less suited to racing than Monaco is. And for the Formula E guys, Monaco is, you know, it's more like a proper race circuit, to be honest.
Oh, because judging by the season so far, so how many rounds are there in the Formula E Championship in total again?
14.
14. So let's just have 14 races at Monaco. Better than what, but it's been better than everything else. I will say,
sorry, 13.
Like
but anyway,
the Adria is a complete wreckfest. So, except for Mexico, Mexico was a good race, actually, mind you. There wasn't
Mexico was honestly one of the best races, and if they can have a Mexico every single race,
they've succeeded. Mexico kind of had everything. It had close battles. It had a massive crash as well. So it had the balance, and I think Formula E does need that. And I guess Monaco was kind of the same balance as well, which is why it was so good. Do we have anything else to say on the Formula E front? Because we think we might move on.
We actually have some breaking news. The qualifications have just ended for day 1 of the Indianapolis 500.
Okay.
And the 30th qualifying effort, the 30th qualifying position, Pippa Mann.
Ooh, she got in. Oh my goodness.
Way back into the 500 with a 17th qualifying effort, with a speed of 228.104 miles an hour.
Sorry, Chris.
So positions 10. Yep.
You cut out there. Who was this who's clawed their way back in? Hinchcliffe?
Graham Rahal.
Rahal, okay.
where does Fernando Alonso and James Hinchcliffe currently sit?
Fernando, it will be 31st if they start tomorrow. If they don't go out tomorrow. However, he was bumped from 30th place.
Okay,
Ooh.
so Alonso
Yeah.
is going to have to fight for his place in the Indy 500. Ooh,
As is
that's-
James Hinchcliffe, Pato O'Ward,
Oh no!
Oh no!
Sage Karam, Max Chilton, Kyle Kaiser, and J.R. Hildebrand.
Oh, this could be interesting. So anyway, I think we'll keep you.
However, there is a threat of rain tomorrow. So,
dear.
Okay.
if they qualify now, they don't manage to qualify, first of all, Spencer Pigot would be on the pole for the Indianapolis 500
Oh my
My
goodness.
gosh. Oh,
for
Hey.
Ed Carpenter.
Chris, can you talk us through,
Yes.
providing we do have a green track tomorrow, can you talk us through the drivers going through to the top 9 shootout, the first 9, and also where everyone else is going to start between positions 10th and 30th?
Yes, I can. Presently, the front row is Spencer Pigot, Will Power, and Simon Pagenaud. Row 2 is Josef Newgarden, Colton Herta, and Ed Jones. Row 3 is Ed Carpenter, Alexander Rossi, and Sébastien Bourdais. That is the Fast 9. The drivers locked in after day 1 of qualifying are Marco Andretti, Connor Daly, and Elio Castroneves in row 4. Row 5, Marcus Ericsson, Takuma Sato, and James Davison. Row 6 is Tony Kanaan, Graham Rahal, and Scott Dix. Row 7 is Orvia and J.R. Hildebrand. Row 8 is Ryan Hunter Ray, Santino Ferrucci, Mateus Laced. Row 9, Jack Hanley. And row 10, Zach Veach, Felix Rosenqvist. Man.
Wow.
okay, we'll keep you updated on IndyCar qualifying at the end of the show. But I want to
And
move on
bump day is
to
tomorrow.
and bump day tomorrow. So I want to move to a bit of news that broke over the last couple of days. For those of you, Search is a program that helps drivers that wouldn't necessarily be able to get into motorsport. So basically, how it works is that and to go along to a racetrack and drive a race car, you could get a drive. Search program
Right.
has been
Jack.
put in. Yes.
Sorry, I'm gonna have to stop you because you were really roboting like all the way through that. I don't have a clue what the Aussie Racing Driver program is. Really sorry about that. If you could maybe start again, that would be great. Sorry about that.
Anyway, okay, so the Aussie Driver Search program is pretty much it's a program that helps drivers that wouldn't necessarily be able to get into motorsport. So basically, how it works is you'll pay however many $1,000 to get into a race car, go to a track, and if it's good enough, you could actually get a drive in real life, which is a really interesting prospect for a lot of people. The Aussie Driver Search program has been put into voluntary liquidation by the founder of the program, Kyle Austin, which means that this is probably the end of ADS. Not only that, but there has been drastic implications for ADS Driver Search prize winners and various race programs that they are involved with. For example, Matt Powers is now out of a Super 3 drive, and people who have won competition will receive their prizes. According to Kyle Austin, one of the contributing factors was Matt Stone Racing. In an audio statement, he said that one of the contributing factors to the fall of the company was their Bathurst 12-hour campaign. despite their fantastic result. Apparently, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Due to an insurance issue, the car was originally going to be withdrawn from the race. However, Austin then paid for the insurance himself, which cost him dearly. To make matters worse, Matt Stone Racing apparently changed the deal with Aussie Driver Search that Aussie Driver Search had with them to run in Super 3, where they were previously going to run in Todd Hazelwood's championship-winning car from Super 2, I believe, and were moved to Matt Stone's other Commodore. These are serious allegations, and Matt Stone Racing made themselves heard. A statement from Matt Stone Racing said, MSR strongly refutes all of the allegations made by Mr. Austin and notes that this is the first time any of these matters have been raised by Mr. Austin with MSR, and in fact, following the completion of the Bathurst 12-hour, Mr. Austin personally thanked Matt Stone and praised the whole team's efforts for the weekend's result. ADS had delivered the Audi R8 GT3 to the MSR garages in such poor condition that it had been unable to run at the ADS competition final, leading MSR to complete considerable works to the Audi to return it to competitive running order. Work MSR rightly deserves to be compensated for. The statement would then go on to blame Kyle Austin for the fallout of the Super 3 and the Super 2 entry they also had planned. The statement also said, and I quote, MSR is disappointed that Mr. Austin is trying to smear the reputation and apportion blame for his own poor business and lifestyle choices on MSR. Regardless, it seems like the end of a program that provided so many with a chance in the racing world. Now, joining us on the show today, we have a special guest to talk about this. Joining us on the show is Michael Evans, who, if you've watched some of my Oz and NZ combined content on the IndyCar racing and stuff, you'll know him as Night Pegasus. And Michael Evans was originally going to actually be competing in the Aussie Driver Search. So, Michael, welcome along.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Good.
So
I got that part right. That's good.
that's good. So how are you actually going to be involved with Driver Search? So Aussie Driver Search. So what were you going to be doing specifically?
So what I did, I signed up to get into one of the V8 utes. And that weekend, I was going to have 2 10-minute sessions of practice, and then on the following day, I go out and have a 10-minute assessment run in the ute. So that's what I was going to do, and I was just wanting to get in a ute basically and run and drive fast. So that was my goal. I was never going to get to a point where I was actually going to race, I don't think.
So a lot also I posted about this in Oz and Z Combined because quite a few people in Oz and Z Combined are trying to get involved with Aussie Driver Search, and
Yeah.
I believe, I can't remember who it was, but somebody said they had actually spent in excess of $3,000 on the whole experience. So
I think that was Rossi. I'm not sure of his other names, but yeah, he come up as Rossi. Yeah, and apparently he's in Darwin, and he had to organise flights to get to a track, and he was due before the end of the month to actually race. So I was due in August, and I had quite finished paying. So yeah, he's a lot further in debt than I am.
So, what does this mean for you and the other people who competed in ADS?
Oh, for me, mate, I'm extremely disappointed. You know, I signed up. I sort of started a countdown. You know, how many days to go. I was really looking forward to this. I've always wanted to drive a race car for something like 30 years, and I was actually going to get a chance. So, yeah, extremely disappointed. You know, I've lost some money as well. You know, so I've tried to contact people. So out of pocket, mate, disappointed. Disappointed's probably the main thing.
So, what do you think will happen next for Aussie Driver Search and all the people who actually planned or actually participated in ADS?
I honestly don't know. I don't know a lot about it, except what I've read, and you read the statement out there. But I suppose basically we've lost our money. You know, it seems that in the statement that was released by Aussie Driver Search that they paid everybody that they owed money to, but competitors, yeah, we're the last to get our money back if we get anything back. So I did read or hear that he tried to sell the business and get someone else to take the business on. So I don't know. He's liquidated, which means he's just going to sell and get some cash because he needs cash. So maybe they just he's got some good business advice and he gets rid of a few of the cars, gets some cash, pays who he has to, and maybe runs a bit smaller operation. I think that's about all I could see that they could do, other than what he says is file for bankruptcy, which means you just close the doors and everything's gone.
So as you said, they'll probably sell some of their cars, and I think throughout my various readings of this story, I saw that they had actually sold their Ford Falcon supercar, which they used to test people out. So, will you actually be able to be compensated for what's happened?
I don't think so. You know, I went through what they advised, which was to contact the payment gateway Stripe, and they just said that you need to contact driver search. I'm probably getting spammed by people at the moment. And I contacted my bank, and the only thing they could say for me to do was cancel my card and get a new one. So I actually get to talk to the search and get them, you know, press my case. Yeah, mate, I just write it off to experience, unfortunately.
So it's extremely unfortunate what happened to you. So obviously you almost kind of want someone. So do you think it's is Matt Stone really to blame, or is it all Kyle Austin?
Interesting question. I think at the end of the day, you know, having my own business, it falls on the business owner. It's easy to point fingers, you know, and say, oh, he did this and he didn't do that. And I don't know, you know, all we've got is what each side is telling us. So, yeah, if you know what they're saying and look at like who's running a business and who's fallen over in business, then, you know, I think it's ADS's problem. To blame someone, I don't know, mate. I'm not going to blame anyone. Like I said, I just put it down to experience. There's a lot of factors involved with business that can affect it and put you under. So, yeah, I'm not going to blame anyone. I think ADS probably made some bad decisions. You know, that's life.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think this would actually turn you off of doing this again, or would you still, given the chance, would you still want continue your in like if program did exist?
Yeah, I'll definitely have another go. You know, I'll probably just be a bit more thorough. But then I don't want to go investigating people's businesses just before I buy something. You know, I just have faith. They come up, yeah, I'd have another go. You know, I was pretty keen to get into this. I was actually looking at starting up some sort of a business to maybe funnel a few more people into ADS, but then that's gone by the wayside. But no, mate, I definitely have another go. You know, I love motorsport. I have for a long time. You know, I've driven a few go-karts, but they're go-karts. It'd be great to get in a car. So yeah, to answer your question, mate, I'll have someone else. Maybe someone else will buy the company and it'll keep going. Who knows? It's only like day 2 or 3 of this this development. So, you know, things could turn around. Who knows?
So, speaking of business, would you actually like to tell us a little bit more about your business model that you're working on?
Yeah, sure. So, like I said, I've been interested in racing. You know, my background, I've been following motorsport for probably about 40 years now. So, I've tried to crack in to motorsport at different times. I've had no support. And then over the years, I've sort of, you know, they've developed sim racing, and I stumbled across that a couple of years ago, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm like, how do I get from being a sim racer to a actual drive in a car? How can we do that? So I've been working on a plan to maybe get a competition going, where people sim racers compete, and at the end of the day, we race a championship, and the champion gets a chance to go and drive. Part of what I was doing is Aussie driver searches. I was actually going to go and see what they did. I was going to set up this model, and then put people in Aussie driver search. Pay a fee, and away you go. So that's what my business model basically is. But although Aussie driver search is gone, I've got a few other ideas, and it might be that we just start off in go-karts and put someone in a go-kart and work through. My whole goal of this is, because of my own experiences, try and get somebody through and into motorsport, and then see where it goes from there. There's a lot more to my business plan, which I could go on and on for, but that's the gist of it. Set up a sim racing competition, people enter. At the end of the day, we crown a champion, and that champion then gets sponsored by the group that I set up to go and get in a car. And then if it's successful, then we could roll that out, in all sorts of categories, or you'd have different categories of racing and put you in different categories of motorsport. If it got off the grid, probably even like sponsor. So that's basically it. Take sim racers that are really want to get out and have a race, and have a race and put them in a car.
So, I mean, as two fellow drivers in the combined championship, I mean, I'd happily put my hand up to go in a go-kart. So, I mean, my door's always open.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming on, Michael. It's been a pleasure having you, and hopefully we can have you on the podcast at a later date, and hopefully it's under better circumstances. And I hope you find you land on your feet in all this.
Yeah, mate, I'll be right. A lot worse has happened to me than this. So it's been a pleasure, and I really like what you're doing. And hopefully I get on and I beat you on Sunday.
Oh.
Oh.
No, you know me, no chance. I got to actually get in a race and finish.
Well, I haven't had the best IndyCar to loop the car like I did at Laguna Seca several times. Anyway, thanks for coming on. Caitlin, should we move on to our final segment of the day?
Yeah, just quickly, thanks for that, and thanks for sharing your story. And I'm sorry about what happened with that. Anyway, is our story of the day? Oh my goodness, do I have no jingles today?
Well,
never mind.
We do have one. We do have one.
Do we? It's not on the document.
Well, we have every single week.
Of course, you're talking
Of course.
Sorry. Yeah, you're talking about miscellaneous stories and points that we missed. Indeed.
All right, so we get it is of course time for miscellaneous stories and points that we missed and are therefore covering now, TM Bing. So should we get into our first one of those of the day?
Flip, I think I muted everything by accident, as I was playing the jingle. Sorry, that went all wrong. Yeah, you'd only have heard a bit of that jingle then, but yeah, whatever the case. Miscellaneous stories and points that we missed and therefore recovering now, TM Bing. And we start with Jack, sorry.
Rich Energy, of course, the sponsor for Haas F1 team. Their primary sponsor, so Haas's primary sponsor, Rich Energy, lost their court case against White Bikes, which is a company that makes bikes. And this is because they got into trouble for using pretty much the exact same logo. Look at the two logos. They are remarkably similar. I'm surprised that that's happened at all.
I don't get how they're that similar, to be honest. Often I put it down to complete coincidence, but they're pretty much exactly the same thing. I don't know why that would happen. I honestly don't.
And actually, they're on Rich Energy, also on IndyCar.
Is it?
They're in the number 42 Ed Carpenter Racing Chevy in the Indianapolis 500, and
before we get back into qualifying, I think we should go through this and talk about it at the end of the show.
Yeah, no, I noticed some Rich Energy shirts on that team, so yeah, I'm not really convinced that this is a legitimate business, to be honest with you. I'm just not convinced.
Well, they're selling cans, but they're selling cans of drinks, so I assume they exist in some respect. However,
They could have just rebadged Red Bull cans.
Yeah, but obviously, like, no one had ever heard of Rich Energy before they came into Formula One. I don't think so. I don't think any of you guys had ever heard of it.
I certainly hadn't, and I heard a lot of people as well saying that they thought that potentially it wasn't a real company. And there's been another thing that came out this week where apparently they've made like several 100,000 cans and just haven't put anything in them. But I honestly don't know. Whatever the case, this is all just hearsay. I have just noticed though, they're renowned for having quite a I don't know what's the word, but their Twitter account has been very like, I don't know if there's a word for what they are. It's just very much like how, you know, they'll always... What, sorry?
Audacious?
Potentially. It's just like...
Well, remember also, back during the preseason test...
Oh yeah, we're faster than Red Bull!
Oh, we're faster than Red Bull, even though we've not turned a single lap yet. That's my impression of Richard Nathan Urgy, the person that...
The reason I brought this up, though, is because apparently on May the 16th they tweeted, "We're looking forward to meeting white bikes again in court in June." But the thing about the thing that jumps out to me about all of that is that the picture that's going with it, that's it's basically a picture of two people in Rich Energy outfits boxing, and I just think that's so inappropriate. It's like they're treating the whole thing like a joke.
Strange. Shall we move on?
Yeah.
What day was this, Caitlin?
May the 16th.
Oh, I see it. I see it.
Yeah, I just think that's so like inappropriate. It's not a joke. You're in a court case. Like, what the heck? Anyway, sorry.
So,
their arrogance actually just baffles me.
Absolutely,
at this
it
point.
does.
Right, so we actually have a Super Formula story. So Naoki Yamamoto and Nick Cassidy have both praised Super Formula's overtaking system. And can I just say, I also praise Super Formula's overtaking system. It is just fantastic.
Do I?
Alright, so good news from Super Formula then. I don't think anything more needs to be said on that. So moving on to some more Formula One news, actually. We do have a lot of Formula One news and miscellaneous stories and points that we missed, and therefore covering now TM Bing this week. But the F1 2021 regulations are expected to be signed off in June.
And I am so worried.
Uh-oh.
Several teams, some of the big teams have said, yes, we want these regulations signed off now. And of course, Claire Williams has said, oh, you know, I'm happy with the delay because Williams sort of need everything they can get. So F1 2021 regulations expect to be signed off in June, and I can see why you're worried, Caitlin.
Yes.
Well, they have a car since 19. They have a car as they're currently at present running a car from 1984 in 2019. I had to make that joke.
The difference was that in the 80s, Williams were competitive. But anyway,
Sure.
You can't just use the same car every year, Williams.
I'm mainly worried about the 2021 regulations because I have a feeling that if you listen to the current F1 fan base, if you listen to exactly what the fans are going to say, you end up with a car that doesn't work. And that's because, well, F1 fans, they know what they want to see, they don't know how in general, this is. I know, like, I'm not trying to insult anyone. I know that there are some people in the F1 fan base who are very clever, but in general, I think people know what they want to see. They just think they know how to do that, and they rush to conclusions and they jump on bandwagons, and it just ends up going wrong. I think that's what went wrong
4,
with
6, 8. We just won a big V8.
Exactly. I just think that's what happened in. I think one of the worst eras in Formula One history was 2000 and probably 2011, the worst year. And in my opinion, that was because that was the year where they added DRS, and it was far too effective at the time. And that was simply from people going, it's too hard to overtake in Formula One. And then they added the DRS, and suddenly, it was too easy to overtake in Formula One. Also, the tyres that year, the way they acted like eggshells, it was because people had wanted more strategy in the races. People had asked for more, they'd want it to be more strategic, because Formula One's the pinnacle of motorsport, etc., etc. But then they just end up not being able to race because they've got tyres that fall apart. Now we're going to go back on ourselves, and we're going to end up with very, very dumbed down cars, which in my opinion are probably going to end up looking and acting very much like Indy cars or Super Formula cars, which, yeah, they might provide better, like, on-track racing than they do now, but it's not Formula One. It's not the engineering spectacle that we've known for years. It's not what I look up to and admire. And in my opinion, yeah, it's great that, I'm not trying to say that one's better than the other. I'm not trying to say that IndyCar's better than Formula One or Formula One's better than IndyCar or whatever. I'm just saying we should have both. I think they should be able to exist in the same universe together without people comparing them, and without people saying, well, because this is better, we should make this more like the other thing. No, it doesn't work like that.
The problem is, Formula One, at the end of the day, is a form of entertainment. Now, IndyCar and Super Formula, with the spec parts that they have, are putting on a fantastic spectacle at the moment, and they are absolutely on the up. Formula One, as you've seen from this year, it has been absolutely boring. It's been absolutely terrible.
I disagree.
This is one of the starts to a Formula One season I've ever seen. And
I've seen worse.
You've been around longer, though. I've only been watching Formula One.
I've been around the world from London to the Bay. I'm MC Hammer.
So at the end of the day, Formula One is a form of entertainment, and if it's not entertaining, it's not a form of entertainment. So I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to find every single possible way just to make the on-track action better than it has been.
The problem with that is they're going to risk being too gimmicky, like Formula E.
Absolutely, that's what I was saying.
They're going to, like, when they fail, which they inevitably will, unfortunately, they'll fall back to the let's try and please our fan base instead of actually working on the on-track product. We'll introduce gimmicks that cater to one fan instead of the entire fan base. NASCAR had to actually roll back. NASCAR actually apologized to the fan base for doing just that, for adding gimmicks and, quote, going after one fan instead of every fan, end quote.
It is
from their statement they made.
Situation to solve.
Sorry, can I give my opinion on what they actually need to do to make it better? And I know that I've just been saying how, like, fans don't know what exactly what can make it better. And to be honest, I include myself in that because I am not an engineer or an aerodynamicist or anything like that. But from my point of view, what I want is for them to, for a start, put a budget cap on so teams can't, so there's no major advantage for teams with more budget apart from people just wanting to say, oh, I've worked for Mercedes or I've worked for Ferrari. I think that aside from that, the regulations need to be more open, and they've always been trying to restrict the regulations and restrict what the cars can be like, because they sometimes in the past a car would be brought out that would absolutely run away with things just because of how dominant it was. Like, for example, the Lotus 78 or the Brabham BT48B, if I remember correctly, or was it 46B, the fan car?
Which one?
It had a massive fan on the back.
46 The 46B.
46B,
You'd know
okay.
it to- you'd know it to
Or
be
even
solid.
or even further back, the Lotus 49 or whatever. The thing is, those cars are now seen as legendary because they were so unique. And to be honest, I think the thing that interests me about Formula One is the fact that each car is unique, and I think that each car should be more unique. And I want to see unique cars pitted against each other, because I think that's when we get more back and forth seasons where one car will be better at one track and another car will be better at another, and that's emphasized when you have more variation. And I think that's why I just think that the rules are too tight, therefore they're all doing pretty much exactly the same thing, and it's all about who can do it better, therefore who can spend more money on that one precise thing, therefore Mercedes and Ferrari. Yeah, so I think budget caps and more open regulations, that's what we need. And I also want the fans to stop complaining about everything. That's the third thing.
And I would also add to that, I may be in a minority here, but I want them to bring back refueling.
I agree. Refueling was
I agree
great.
with that too. So anyway, with the whole open regulations thing, that's interestingly what my dad's always said. So, but before we could probably go on for ages about how to make Formula One better. So I might have to stop you there on that. We do have some more Formula One news. Apparently, I wish we had our favorite Toto song right now, because a Formula One return to Africa is a necessity according to Liberty Media, and Marrakesh is interested in hosting an African Grand Prix. Now, who would like to hear my rendition of Africa by Toto?
Not particularly, but go on anyway.
So anyway, yeah, that apparently is important for Formula One for some reason. I don't know why.
Personally,
No.
I don't want to see it at Marrakesh.
Well, not necessarily a Formula E track. I'm just saying that it will probably Marrakesh. So they might actually have a racetrack in Marrakesh, where they host it. But
I think that
Right.
an African Grand Prix is much more of a necessity than a Spanish Grand Prix. Just to bring up what we had earlier. I think that as a world championship, it would be great to go to every continent except Antarctica. And I would...
why not? Why don't we go to Antarctica?
Good question.
Yeah, why
Good
don't we go to
question.
the Antarctic Grand Prix?
That is a good question.
on
It
now.
would certainly solve the problems of tires overheating. But whatever the case.
Caitlin, it would be absolutely cool.
Okay.
Formula One Antarctic Grand Prix in 2021. You heard it here first on Motorsport recently.
Of course.
Anyway,
No, whatever the case, I think that F1 as a world championship would definitely benefit from going to every continent. I think it's much more of a necessity than, for example, a Vietnamese Grand Prix or a Spanish Grand Prix. Dutch Grand Prix I get because of the Verstappen hype. I hope it's not going to last long. But whatever the case, yeah, I think that an African Grand Prix would be great to see, and yeah, we don't want to see it on another street circuit, but it would be great to see an African Grand Prix.
Anyway,
I'd rather see the Kyalami.
Anyway, moving on to some news relating to the Ford GT. Now, don't worry, my fur hat has actually been equipped. It's over my headphones because Sébastien Bourdais has likened the BOP of the Ford GT to socialism. This is due to the fact that the car's success was its own downfall, and because it was so good, the BOP constantly piled on. And now, of course, it has not been as successful as it was at the very start of its lifespan.
I'm just imagining Sébastien Bourdais returning to the pits in his Ford GT, and the lead mechanic going over to him and going, "So how does the car feel?" And he goes, "Drives like socialism."
It drives like a Lada Riva.
That's actually a really funny
communism,
image.
not socialism.
Same difference. Anyway, so that's that.
What's wrong with socialism?
Let's not get into that here, okay?
That's
It's equalization,
Anyway,
okay.
is what I meant.
now that Jack has set off the Whitfield, we head back
Oh,
to
Jesus.
We have some IndyCar news.
Expect Whitfield triggered memes to show up on the Discord.
Yonkos Racing have lost their primary sponsors. Sorry, Jack.
We kind of covered this before, and it doesn't help with the fact that Kyle Kaiser totaled the car in practice. No sponsors, repair bills is the last thing that they need.
And they didn't have any spares at the track, so they had to basically wheel in. They had to basically put in a car they previously ran at Circuit of the Americas to run at the 500, and that is why at present they are struggling for speed. They're not yet in. As a result,
we also have some WEC / IndyCar news, and I didn't know about this because apparently Dragon Speed will leave the LMP1 project on the WEC after Le Mans to focus on IndyCar. Now, who would like to tell us about that?
I'm not surprised. Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. It's because, well, you know, we all knew that Dragon Speed was coming to Indy. They're already running, I think, Ben Hanley in the Indy 500 this year. And I think the rest of the season too. Am I right?
yes, it was. It was supposed
something.
to be a partial season, but they are going to be running the full season, I believe, now. And they will be starting 27th next Sunday.
Yes, and I'm also not surprised that they left LMP1 because let's face it, LMP1 died last year. 2017 was very much the last year of LMP1 proper, in my opinion. And as a result, I don't really care anymore. And you know, let's hope that the hypercar regulations will live up to the hype. But I'm not entirely sure that they will.
No, they probably won't. Now, signing off for today, Chris, would you like to give us a quick update on qualifying, and then I'll say a final few things before we end up.
Well, all I can say is, wow. That was some tension during the final hour of the Indy 500 qualifying. Again, not in for those that don't, for those that haven't as yet tuned in. Not in the Indianapolis 500. Fernando Alonso, Pato O'Ward, James Hinchcliffe, Sage Karam, Max Chilton, Kyle Kaiser, and J.R. Hildebrand. I believe that's 6. Is that 6? Yeah, it's 6. Unfortunately, they will have to go qualify tomorrow for the last row shootout. And that will be at 12:50 Eastern Time on NBC, followed by the Fast 9, which are, for those that also just tuned in, they are Spencer Pigot, Will Power, Simon Pagenaud, Josef Newgarden, Colton Herta, Ed Jones, Ed Carpenter, Alexander Rossi, and Sébastien Bourdais. Now, of the 6 drivers that are out at the moment, who are you predicting for the last row?
Fernando Alonso's dangerously close to being bumped, so it's not looking particularly good for him. But I think there is a possibility that Fernando Alonso could be bumped.
Yeah, let me just have a look at the drivers who are in the bottom 6. Unfortunately, I don't think Kyle Kaiser is going to get in due to Junkos Racing really struggling with not just their spare parts, but with their funding and stuff. I just can't see them getting in from here. Right, let me see if I can find the rest of the... here we go. Yeah, so Karl Kaiser, definitely one of them I'm predicting to be removed. And I have to say, the other two... Where's 31st position? 31st... okay, that's
Is
disappeared.
Alonso.
Then I've got the wrong list. Could you please type
I've
out...
got it actually from Paul Tracy's timing screen.
Alright, if you could type it out somewhere so I can see, that would be great. If that's...
I'll leave it at the bottom of the document here.
Okay, yeah, I'll get that up very quickly. Yeah, we'll come to that in a couple of minutes, but anyway, Jack, for now, anything else to say?
Not particularly. I think it is almost time to sign off. So once you do that, we'll probably finish up for today. So I may as well thank everybody now. So thank you for Caitlin Penny commentary and the wonderful Chris Whitfield for joining me on the mic today. Thank you also very much to our special guest Michael Evans for joining us on the show to talk about the Aussie driver search fallout. Thank you very much to our writers as well. So thank you very much to Freya Edwards, and thank you to @FinniCarol on Instagram for doing the graphics as usual. All of the links to the people just meant the pages of the people just mentioned will be in the description below. Thank you also again. Thank you to everyone for 100 subscribers. You have absolutely no idea how much it means to me, and I just can't thank you enough. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm kind of lost.
And congrats, Jack. Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And
Congratulations are definitely in order.
and it's only
Thank you.
yeah, and it's only 4 years later than my Minecraft channel got it. So yeah. Sorry. Anyway, as Chris color codes the order, I would say my predictions for getting bumped are probably Karl Kaiser, Max Chilton because of the struggles of Carlin, and also probably Sage Karam. I think that Alonso and Hinchcliffe are experienced enough to get through, and I'd be surprised if Patricio O'Ward took it lying down either, due to, you know, reigning Indy Lights champion, Red Bull Junior. Yeah, he's got to be fired up this year. So, yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna say my 3 to get bumped are Kaiser, Chilton, and Karam.
Interesting.
I'm gonna be bold.
Okay, go ahead, Chris.
I think it's going to be Pato O'Ward, James Hinchcliffe, and Kyle Kaiser.
Okay, so you think Alonso's going in? That's different
I
from
think
your
he's going
first
to be
bump
bumped.
predictions. Oh, you think he's going to be
No,
bumped?
sorry. I'm gonna say that now this was based on speeds. I think Sage Karam's gonna be bumped. Kyle Kaiser, I think I think the first two, Fernando Alonso and James Hinchcliffe, actually fast enough to make the show. But honestly, unfortunately, I see Max Chilton, Pato O'Ward, and Sage Karam going home. And it's a shame to say that because Pato O'Ward is a talent. Is a real talent. It would be a shame to miss the 500, but it is Indianapolis. And strange things have happened.
I totally
And
agree.
I think on that note, it's time to end. Thank you everybody so much for tuning in. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Good night, everyone.
Ta-ra!